Hey, welcome back here to the Central PA Pour, and this is our Season 3, Episode 1. So, gentlemen, how are you doing? We got all three of us in the house today.
Absolutely.
So, Kev, you just been traveling around?
Yep. California last week, Alabama the week before, Florida next week.
All right. So, you are traveling.
Yeah.
So, we're fortunate. We got all three of us sitting here in studio. Mr. Dave?
Yeah, I went to Lancaster yesterday.
Did you?
Does that count?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just checking.
Well, no.
Actually, I went to Mannheim.
Mannheim.
Yeah.
And we actually are drinking our second all-grain batch. It's an English IPA. I'm still toddling with a name for it. I got a few out there. Cobblestone Road, House of Commons. So I'm trying to figure out a name. But so it's our second all-grain batch. Not too bad. I think we did it pretty good. But we have another guest sitting in here with us, and we're happy to have him here. And he has a very interesting story from what I've read about him and his brewery. It's a little bit different style. So we're going to welcome him in here, let him introduce himself to the Central PA Pour. Welcome.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So who do we give us your name and who you're with?
Sure. My name's Adam Chamberlain. I am the founder and brewer currently of Cartel Brewing and Blending in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
All right. So welcome to the Central PA Pour. And where does Cartel come from? Because when I hear Cartel, I'm thinking of bad things.
And that's one of the reasons why we started using that name. So it does have kind of a negative connotation, and rightly so in some respects. But when you actually dive into the origin of the word and kind of some of the more 30,000-foot definitions of the word cartel, it was interesting because I came across several original definitions, and it was independent manufacturers or suppliers aligned by common interests. Some talked about, supply and demand and price restrictions and kind of some of the more negative components of it. But when you boil it down to independent manufacturers and suppliers aligned by a common interest, isn't that what craft beer is?
Oh yeah, I wholeheartedly. It is a community.
It is. So trying to kind of reclaim that word for something a little bit more positive. We do anticipate doing charitable work at some point that is very anti-human trafficking, anti-drug trafficking. It's a question that comes up a lot, and then some people don't ask the question. And they just assume, kind of negative things, unfortunately. So
1920s Sicilian mafia.
The craft beer cartel. Well, and it's back in the day, been into craft beer for quite some time, and they used to do a lot of trading and shares and stuff. And I think at one point someone called me the beer cartel just because of.
Oh, that's cool.
So
it's a unique name.
I like it. I do.
I went back and forth with it, and kind of through different groups. Tested it, if you will, because I come from a marketing background, so you got to kind of test it a little bit, see what kind of feedback you get, kind of focus groups type of thing. And it kept coming back really strong. It's not tied to a geography, even though we love where we are. So we'll see where it goes.
All right. So where does the airplane in the logo come from?
That's another question we get a lot. So in the early days, we played with several types of smuggling vehicle, cigarette boats, Range Rovers, old Cessna, and the plane just kind of stuck. Every time we tried to take it away, people were like, don't get rid of the plane. We love the plane. And then secondary to that, I have a personal goal that I hope I fulfill at some point in my life to get my small craft license.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
So every day I go to work, I stare at that plane, and it reminds me, okay, I got to do this at some point. So it's kind of for me as much as for everybody else.
So it's almost like a picture for that goal. It's the end result where you want to be.
Yep.
So I think it's unique. It's a unique name, unique logo, and it's definitely definitive you. And
Sure,
you just
sure, yeah.
explained why. So I think it's awesome how you've come up with the name and the logo. I
And
think
even
it's
some
cool.
of the beer names have been almost flight related. We did a beer even before the plane. Even we did a beer called Drop Zone, and we pictured like an airplane flying over, dropping a package of hops or whatever.
Oh, that's cool.
Just kind of things like that, or Flight Mode, which is a double IPA we made with almost entirely Falconer's Flight. So, it kind of works its way in here and there.
That's cool. And it makes your job easier when you're coming up for a name because you have this dream and goal of what you want to do. So you're just like, man, kind of like I just explained. I'm still looking for a name for an English IPA, and I was
I
on
like coming
Untappd.
up with names. So
I was
really
on
help with
Untappd
that.
searching. My wife and I sat here the other night. She goes, well, "What about this?" I'm like, there's like 10 of them with the same thing, and I don't want to. I want to be different. I want to be different. Where can they find you other than your store location? Are you on social media, your website?
Yeah, no, cartelbrewing.com takes you to our website. Pretty straightforward. We're only on Facebook and Instagram, so it's at Cartel Brewing for both.
All right. Hours of operation. When can they stop and get your beer and visit you guys?
Yeah, we're closed Tuesdays and Wednesdays at the moment, so it's Thursday to Monday.
Okay.
Thursday evening. Friday we're open noon to 10. Saturday noon to about 10. It's varies by season, but we're probably going to go back to 10 on Saturdays. Sundays noon to 6, and Mondays 5 to 9.
That's different because a lot of shops are not in this area, not open on Mondays.
It's same with Lancaster. I think we may have inspired others to open up though, because it's been one of our busier days.
I think it's great. I think that's
people. We have a pretty solid regular group of people that come almost every Monday. So
that's awesome.
It's important. Absolutely.
So, what got you into this? Were you a home brewer or just something? This was a passion and you jumped full bore into it?
yeah, so
It's the same story we ask almost every one of you guys.
yeah, no, and it's kind of to some extent a similar story with different different points that make it unique. But yeah, I had a friend who was playing around with home brewing back in 2007, 2006. And he invited me over to join him. So I just kind of watched, kind of talked about the process because we were into beer. So I was like, oh, this looks like fun. And kind of got, semi-hooked and joined him a few times. And then early 2008, January, I believe, I put a recipe together. It was kind of a tweaked clone recipe of Mad Elf because it's, one of my favorites at the time. And so he let me put that together, and then, it was all grain and he was only doing extracts. And I was like, well, I just want to jump in and just do all grain. So can we make that happen? And he was able to borrow a mash tun from a friend. And so it was his first all grain batch, my first kind of taking a recipe and kind of fiddling with it and doing some research on it and reading up on it. And instead of cherries, we used plum. So kind of changed things a little bit, plums and honey. And then ever since then, I kind of, got hooked a little bit.
Is that recipe still around?
Yeah.
Do you still bring it out once in a while?
I have not made that exact recipe yet. I've made a similar one that I think came out a lot better based on just, 12, 13 years later, kind of
More experience and
figuring out like, okay, I don't want to go this direction, or, but yeah, so in 2021, I brewed a Belgian double, essentially, with tart black cherry and wildflower honey. So it was closer to like a Grand Cru Mad Elf, but it was only 9%, so it wasn't like the 11, 12%.
It sounds delicious.
It does.
And we got, the nice thing about that is like you can serve it in a way where we don't have a huge system. So we got two holiday seasons out of it, essentially. And this is what I kind of like to do with the Belgian styles, because they always get better after a year or two anyways. So it's nice to just say, hey, this is what we've got this year. And once it's gone, then the rest of the kegs kind of sit for a year. And then we bring it back out again. I bottled some this year. Went really well. So several years after that, my friend kind of he was kind of toying with it. So it wasn't like a thing he was really serious about. Met another friend who was like really into it, like down to like making his own labels, his bottles. He was brewing. Their household budget had a line item for brewing. Him and his wife would brew pretty often. And so,
at least you had the wife on board.
But
too.
it's funny because he I joined him for a couple of brews, and then he just decided he wanted to get out or didn't want to really do it anymore, and so he offered to sell me all of his equipment.
When did you start getting serious then?
I would say closer to the time. I say I've brewed since 2008, and that was maybe a handful of times a year. I would say, and I'm kind of getting to where that point is, but probably 2013, 2014. So this friend who sold me his equipment, I started brewing with it, and he was like, "Hey, you're gonna brew?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, can I come join you?" So it turned into like he joined me for almost every brew, even though he sold me the equipment, didn't want to do it anymore. It's more, it's much more fun when it's not at your house storing all the stuff and making all the messes, I guess, or who knows,
and cleaning it up.
And then in 2014 into 2015, we started. I did a lot of experimentation, so like I liked putting all sorts of flavors in beer. Some could say long before other breweries we started doing it. Like I mean, I would put anything in beer from duck sauce to like. Coffee. Back in the day. I have a small coffee background, tied to York actually. So
Okay.
I'm from Connecticut originally, and I worked back in 06, nope, 03, 04 for Starbucks. Back when I feel like they cared a little more about coffee than all the other things, and as a result of like going through their tasting panel training and what they call the Black Apron program, I was able to come out to York and visit the facility at the time, which was one of their major facilities before I even lived in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
So all these years later, I'm sitting in essentially near York where
Where it all started.
Kind of. So playing with coffee and beer was kind of a huge thing I used to do a lot of, like whether it's espresso, trying to find the way that coffee works in beer, from a scientific standpoint as well as a flavor standpoint, because obviously there's no shortage of breweries that have done it since 2008. But I find that how you do it impacts the quality and shelf life of a coffee beer. So that led to a friend of mine who worked for Passenger Coffee, which is one of the top brands and roasteries in the state in Lancaster. And so we would actually brew small batches at the roastery, and he would pull fresh espresso from their really fancy, expensive espresso machine to where we would get like 40 ounces of like pure fresh pulled espresso, and we would just dump that at flame out into the beer, which was a 12 to 15% ABV imperial stout.
Wow. Yeah. That's up our alley, man.
And that beer, up until that point, I had brewed a good amount of beer, but never really thought about competitions or anything like that. And so I was at Tired Hands, and I had happened to bring some of this beer that we made with the espresso to share with somebody, and he shared it with somebody who shared it with somebody, and this one person said, "Oh yeah, I'm involved with the Lidditz Craft Beer Fest, and you should totally enter this into the competition." And I had like 2 or 3 days to like get this beer ready. I had bottled it all, but the carbonation, it was so high ABV that the bottle carbonation was just not existent. So I'm dumping it back into a keg. I'm like force carbonating it, shaking it up, doing all just to get a couple of bottles.
Doing the roll and
to
all
enter
that
it
stuff.
into the competition. And at the time they were, they had gotten like a little over 100 entries at that for those early years. I don't know how many they get now. But I entered the thing, made the top 10, and then ultimately won.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, interesting. And a lot of the conversations you have in that culture of people trying your beer, talking about it, tell me about this beer. A lot of people who don't like stouts and don't like coffee, but for some reason they love that beer and they voted for it. And I'm like, why is that? Like, you don't like stouts and you don't like coffee. And it's, for whatever reason, it just worked for that particular
And that kind of
person.
really starts you on this goal of what you want to do.
And I brewed it with Brian, who was my friend who I bought his equipment. And so we started, people are approaching us, and like, you get that excitement of like, oh man, maybe we have something here, when it's just probably just the excitement of a festival. You have a bunch of people that probably had a few beers before having that conversation. But still, we got more serious about it. did some fundraising, crowdfunding. We would basically raise money just from local people, some people across the country that I was in beer groups with, to fund equipment and batches, and like in exchange, they're, hey, you're going to get a bunch of free samples,
Right.
from all the stuff that we put together. And so we spent a good bit of money on a 30-gallon kettles, a Blickman half barrel 20-gallon batch system, fermenters, like the whole thing. Set everything up, ironically, in my friend's shed.
So now you're back.
So now
at your friends.
it took over almost his entire storage shed in his backyard, and so we started brewing out of there. And I started talking about whether or not we wanted to open a space. And probably about a year and a half, he just decided that it just wasn't for him to like go commercial and make it a career. So I ended up buying him out. Basically,
buying his half of the equipment out,
pretty much.
Yeah.
Or what he had put in towards it, like, just kind of making him whole on that a little bit, and told him, hey, you're always welcome to come over and brew anytime. And at that time, I had really started focusing on barrel-aged stouts, barrel-aged rye barrel, bourbon barrel, barley wines. I was doing maple wheat wines.
Maple
quads.
wheat.
Yeah, like wheat wines. New England boy. I mean, I'll put maple syrup in anything. So just kind of playing around with more stronger, robust flavors. I mean, there's so many stories.
We definitely got to go over there because that's right up our alley stuff, man. The darker, heavy stuff.
That's why it was always, big Belgians, big barley wines. I mean, I think, the first barley wine I made was more of an American, because it was kind of like a take on Flying Mouflon, because at the time I was like, it was kind of a favorite, but I would age it. So I had a beer aging cellar. So it's like, you age an American barley wine long enough, then the hops fade into more of a malty English iteration of a barley wine, which I didn't know at the time that's what I truly liked.
You like that traditional English British styles, right?
Less IBUs, more malty,
forward breadiness to it,
crazy caramelization. Like the last barley one I made, it was an 8-hour boil.
8-hour boil. Mm-hmm. Holy shit!
Yeah.
That's a big one.
It's necessary if you want it to come out exceptional.
I think of beer.
There's no shortcuts when it comes to making a heavy barrel worthy stout or barley wine. And I had the privilege over the years of having conversation with people like Adam Avery, who was visiting the Bull's Head pub at one point. I got to meet a lot of people. In 2012, I went to GABF. Somehow stumbled into networking my way into an after party. There's a whole story behind that.
Well, we'll have to touch on that. But speaking of beer, I think we have one here in front of us, and it looks crystal clear. That is crystal clear.
So this is the 4th lager I've ever made in my life. And this will be a staple. It's probably, the crowlers don't always do the best job with maintaining head retention, but this one's called Vox Populi, which means voice of the people.
Voice of the people.
It's a Czech style pilsner with Czech malt. I did make some tweaks to the hops, but it is largely traditional noble hops of the Hallertau and Hallertau Blanc.
Cheers to Vox
Populi.
Voice of the people is what you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is a crisp pilsner.
Clean. Yeah.
And if you can see that is crystal clear. So is there a special process to get the clarity of that?
Time.
Yeah,
I don't add any clarifying agents or anything like that. So I probably lager a little bit longer than some breweries would. I currently have the luxury of being able to do so. At some point, that's probably going to change.
Now, how are you lagering in a chamber or
just the conical?
Okay.
I use unitanks, which means I don't transfer them to brights after, which is where, some get all that clarification. I ferment and carbonate, condition all in one tank. And if it leaves that tank, it's going to kegs.
And how big of a system? You had said you're not the biggest, but how big?
5 barrel.
5 barrel?
Mm-hmm.
That's still a good quantity.
Oh yeah, I mean you're going to get 8 to 10 halves out of a batch, unless it's a really big beer. Then you end up with a lot less. Just
now, I notice we're pouring out of crowlers. Can they come to your place and get a crowler and stuff?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And
Some stuff's bottled. Some of the more limited stuff that we do, I still bottle by hand. So, and then that's obviously filled by hand. One of the beers I brought today was the first time we took a beer that we brewed in-house and sent it out to get canned. So we might take advantage of that a little bit more as we go.
Now, do you have the cannery come to you, or you said you sent it to them?
They came out with a refrigerated truck with a bright tank in it. They pumped it into there.
Then they haul it
drove it up, canned it, dropped off a pallet of cans.
Huh. Yeah. That's an interesting, because when we had Molly Pitcher on, they have a canner come to them and do it from theirs. And Dave went up and took video of that.
Yeah, I have video of that.
That's a thing too. There's a lot of there's several companies that offer that service.
That's an interesting concept as far as, they're taking it right from your brewery to their facility to can it. That's interesting. That's an interesting concept. Wouldn't mind talking to them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's through Chatty Monks in Reading.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of them. I don't think I've had any of their beer, the Chatty Monks. I hear them all the time.
They were acquired by another gentleman a couple of years back, and so they've had some slight changes, and the beers that I had recently tasted great. They have some barrel aged stuff that's phenomenal.
Now, is it just you doing the brewing, or do you have an assistant or somebody helping? Is your buddy still helping you once in a while?
No, he's not. He's welcome to join me anytime he wants, but he's.
So we'll give a shout out to him.
Yeah, sure. To Brian. No, my other. So over through the Lidditz competition, meeting people. Me and another gentleman formed a homebrew co-op or a homebrew club based out of Lidditz. And through that group of people, I met my buddy Mike, who homebrews a lot. He brews probably once a week at least.
Wow.
He's starting to really take home some medals, and he won the Lidditz homebrew competition last year.
Okay.
He helps me out almost every day I brew. He just likes coming and helping out. He's not an official employee. He just likes hanging out, likes being a part of the process. It's nice to have somebody to talk to. Although the days where I'm by myself, like sometimes it's really nice to just...
Especially for an 8-hour boil.
Oh, yeah. That's a day. Sometimes we might invite some other friends over for that whole... it is labor intensive. It's probably a 16-hour day start to finish. And people, some might think, oh, that's crazy. And I'm like, well, it's one day.
Yeah.
It's one day that's going to yield something that's far more, in my opinion, and what I enjoy. It's what I want out of the product.
Exactly.
And it just so happens that the people that enjoy it recognize that.
Do you find like when we brew our brew days, we're sitting here drinking as well, and like this last batch that took us over 6, and I think it's because I was drinking too much, wasn't paying attention to the timers.
Yeah, you got to be careful about that. I mean, that's certainly not something that should be happening at my scale.
No.
I'm pretty sure that's there's some legal issues with behaving that way. But yeah, you're tasting stuff along the way. Or it's not like you're slamming pints and stuff during an average brew day. There might be some inspirational beers. If you're brewing a Vienna lager, it's always nice to have a couple to sample at some point throughout the day, even if it's towards the end.
There you go. Yeah, I know the first time we ever did a kit beer, it was my wife got me one of the brewer's best kit beers or kits, and then we had a stout. And thank God when we were done, I'm glad I cleaned the equipment up because I don't quite remember the end. Or was that when we bottled it? It might have been when we bottled it.
Or both.
Well, it's funny because there's this beer, one of the early beers that I brewed on my back patio when I lived in downtown Lancaster. Had some friends over to participate and hang out, and of course we're sampling some beers and doing all that. And we were making what I like to call a Belgian style barley wine.
Belgian style barley.
I just read about the two styles and said, how can we merge these two and make something unique? And of course, we were sampling beers like 120 minute and like some pretty high octane. And we ordered, there's an egg roll, a tiny hole in the wall egg roll place across the street from my house. So we got some of those for lunch, and they sell house made duck sauce by the quart in like a mason jar. And I may have dumped that whole thing into the boil. So now
you cannot deny
Belgian Asian fusion barley wine.
How did it come out?
It was excellent.
That's awesome.
It was most excellent 3 years later when I found like a 6-pack buried in my cellar, and we're like,
and it was really aged.
It was really aged, and it kind of really developed. So some of the spicy notes because it was duck sauce, but it had like red chili flakes and like all that kind of spice and flavor to it. And it was
so I was gonna ask you. That kind of leads into my question. You're not just a craft brewer. Your name says Cartel Brewing and Blending. And what I read on your website, you do a lot of different stuff with the beers, and you're blending different things, blending beers together, like you just explained. Mm-hmm. Where did that just creativity?
Well, there's a number of breweries that go by brewing and blending. We didn't invent that term. Blending is traditionally a barrel term. So like breweries that make a lot of mixed fermentation, barrel aged sours, or they barrel aged stouts. Most breweries will then blend those barrels together, and you might have a barrel that doesn't quite make the cut, or it needs a little help from the other barrel. So you're blending it together and trying to get a flavor profile that's going to be acceptable at the end. And ironically, the only thing we don't blend is barrels at the moment. We do everything that we've done barrel aged has been a single barrel. So whatever that barrel tastes like, if it's acceptable, it is what it is, and it doesn't get blended with anything. Where we do blend is at the taps, in the kegs, in the fermenter. Most breweries blend in the fermenter. So, we're not going to say, hey, we started that idea. Throwing fruit in a sour, throwing, chocolate or cocoa nibs or, whatever you add in like the secondary process. I guess you could technically it's blending.
Okay.
But, what I liked initially was I could make one batch of cream ale, but I could get 2 or 3 different beers.
And I read that, and I'm hoping you brought the one.
Yeah, I brought one.
With the Amish root beer.
So that was a homebrew I used to make a lot of, and I only ever made it with root beer. So it was kind of like, a hint of a root beer float. Root beer, a little bit of vanilla bean. And a crispy summer beer. It was still beer flavored beer. It wasn't like Not Your Father's or whatever root beer.
Oh, those things are awful, man.
No. It was just like, and so we called it Amish Mug Club because the Amish might frown upon alcohol, or it was kind of a joke.
They're probably the ones lining up to
well, and the root beer I would purchase from Roots Market, and it was an Amish stand, and they made the root beer. So I was like, oh, we're just going to call this Amish Mug Club. And then it led to later on, I'm like, well, I'm going to brew this base beer. I want to see how this cream ale tastes by itself. And it's been one of our more popular beers.
Cream
we don't have a Pilsner
back
on. In fact, we have regular Mug Club on right now. But we've infused that with coffee, Thai iced tea. We have one called Malibu Club that we do with, currently it's strawberry, vanilla, and coconut. I think I'm going to nix the coconut. I don't know. I don't particularly...
You're not a coconut
Customers
fan?
love it. I do like coconut. This particular beer, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I need to tweak it a little bit.
Cream ale's making a comeback. There's a lot of places making cream ales now, and that was a style that was, and I think, we were talking ales in particular are starting to come back.
You can turn them faster. The cream ale used to be called the poor man's Pilsner.
Yep.
Okay.
Not poor man's the brewing company. I said that one time. I'm like, I hope people don't think I was like knocking on port because I was like, I think our cream ale is better, and I was like, I wasn't saying it's better than formula because I love Perspective Pilsner. It's like one of my favorite local pilsners.
And they're expanding. They're moving to a new place.
It's like beautiful. I mean, I've only seen pictures so far, but it's gorgeous. A lot of space, multiple floors.
They just won that Breweries in PA again for the second year in a row. To me, that's just a popularity thing. But they do put out some good product. And that Pilsner I just had from you is, that's an awesome beer. That is an easy drinking beer.
We've gotten a lot of great feedback from people that I respect their opinions on that Pilsner because I'm just trying to figure out the lager game myself. And
lagering's not easy. And Francisco from Mad Chef said, try to make a light beer because you can't hide behind it.
Nope. You can't really hide behind that Pilsner.
No, that's what I was getting at. It's crystal clear. To me, that Pilsner was on point. The color was there. It's very crisp. That's an easy drinking lawnmower beer. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a light beer guy, but I could drink that all day.
Yeah, I'd love to keep that. I mean, it's a 6-week turnaround.
Kudos to you.
So it ties up a tank, but for now, like I try to keep one tank for lagering now. Like right now I have a Vienna. I love Vienna. First take on a Vienna lager. So far it's tasting great. Probably has a few more weeks to go. And then we'll probably have to start thinking about our Oktoberfest beer.
Yeah, because you're going to have to start putting that, the Marzens, or how did Keith say that? Marzen?
Marzen.
Meritzen.
That's it.
We have
Mars.
We did get a 10-barrel fermenter from Columbia Kettle Works, so we can double batch into that. So hoping to maybe do a double batch of this Pilsner and just
there you
let
go.
it sit. Then you got plenty.
Yeah. So you guys opened your shop in 21. Is that when you opened your doors?
Yep, March of 21.
So what made you? So you were building up. When we were discussing here, you were building up to what got you this. What made you want to take that next leap to get to opening a brick and mortar?
Well, at the time, and there were a number of years where I was like, I'm not interested in doing this just because there was such a huge growth across the country, almost to where some would say it's getting saturated. But then I noticed, because even though I've been into craft beer and like trying a really awesome beer that most people don't get to try because you either have to trade for it, travel for it, know somebody that's going to send it to you somehow, because you can't legally ship anything, so nobody's doing any of that. It's illegal.
Well, that's if the United States Postal Office will even deliver it.
I noticed a shift from macro craft to micro craft. Like, people were more apt to visit a local tap room and drink it 50 feet from where it was made and take some home than to necessarily go to a grocery store and buy a 6-pack that could have sat on a hot truck, sat on the shelf for 6 months. You don't know. And so the beer that was intended to be might not be the beer that's in the hands of the end user or whatever journey that took. And so I saw that kind of, what I was saying before, following craft beer for 15 years, while also being in marketing, brand development, consumer buying behavior, trends, all that sort of stuff. So you're always looking at it, even though it's a hobby that you enjoy.
You were taking that analytical side of
right. You're always looking at it through that lens because that's what you do. So seeing it become more lucrative to have, like, you can incubate a brand with a tap room and kind of figure out at a low entry point, cost wise, is this something that could work scaled? We already know that there's at least 6 to 8 brands that we could scale production and packaging if we wanted to, and they would do probably very well. So it's R&D at this point. It's the ability for me to still have really good quality control, because it's still a smaller scale. It's like 10 times what I was doing at a homebrew scale, which sounds like a lot, and it is. But I can afford to do those 10-hour boils. I can afford to do an experimental batch because your exposure, if something doesn't go right, it's not detrimental.
Right.
So we can afford to, if we had to dump a batch, I have no problem with that.
You don't like to do it.
I probably, in homebrew, I probably dumped 40% of the batches that I made.
Because it wasn't what you were looking for.
I was just like trial and error, test new ideas. If it works, great. If it doesn't, it's going. And there are people that thought that was kind of crazy. They're like, don't dump that. I'll drink that. That tastes fine to me. And I'm just like, nah.
I should have dumped a couple of ours. But I bottled it.
Don't be afraid to dump it out. It doesn't take much to lose your reputation, and it takes 1,000,000 times more to get it back.
Well,
so I'd rather
they were kit beers, so wasn't my recipe.
Anytime I have a question about a beer where it's like, should I serve this? Should I not? It's not. It doesn't even have to come down to whether I personally like it. Like, if it's up to what it should be stylistically and technically, then that's fine. Even though it might not be the beer I'm going to reach for. It's more of a creative outlet. Like, oh, let's see what happens. I might not drink it all the time, but it's a flavor combination that I think people are going to really dig. Like London Fog. We took our English mild, blended it in the keg with Earl Grey tea and vanilla. London Fog, it's a traditional British tea latte.
Yep.
Not my favorite beer. Not my cup of tea, if you will. Pardon the terrible pun. But that beer flies when it's on. And if it's off for 2 or 3 weeks, I get when is this back? When are you going to have more of this? When can I get this? You know, that sort of thing.
Do you have
had somebody try to pay me for the licensing rights to the recipe? I'm just like, it's Earl Grey tea and vanilla, man. Just go make an English mild and throw some. Come on, it's not. This one is not rocket science.
Do you find that you have certain beers you are always keep on tap, and then you rotate a couple of your other ones?
I try to. Yeah, I'm getting to that point now where I'm trying to hone in that production schedule. It gets really tricky and that's where, like, when you start having accounts that want to buy kegs for their bar, like, I need consistency. Like, okay, if you tell me you want West Coast IPAs, like, almost exclusively, then I will make sure that I'm always brewing a West Coast IPA, because those kegs are going to go. I mean, I'm only going to get 8 or 10 halves, and it doesn't take long between my tap room and them where I'm like, I got to keep making. So I've got to actually... That's half the work, is planning and scheduling. It's not throwing grain in hot water. It's all the other stuff, the bookkeeping.
Yep. And before we actually sat down here, you were saying about Mason-Dixon Distillery that you're using his products, and he's got some of yours beer on tap.
They took a couple of Sixtels for their tap room, because obviously PA is a great state for having cross utilization of products within licenses. So, we can sell anything made in PA that's alcoholic, and they can too. Yeah.
So you're using the product. People come into your tap room. It's not just for beer. They can get food and other.
We have snack
cocktails.
items. The food has been kind of nomadic. Like we occasionally we'll have food trucks. We've done a couple of things in-house, a couple of times. Every Monday we have
I saw pizza night.
Pizza, we pizza every Monday. Italian made wood fire oven, sourdough, all really, really. I mean, it's probably some of the best pizza.
So now you need a chef.
Well, and my business partner owns restaurants. He owns Cilantro Asian Street Kitchen. They just opened in New York. Not very far from here, like probably 5 minutes.
Okay.
It's kind of like Chipotle Asian fusion. Really awesome ideas, clean food, quality food. They make it right there in front of you. It's fast, casual.
You got a source for the duck sauce.
He doesn't make a duck sauce. He makes a garlic chili aioli, though. That's just killer. And a hoisin sauce. That's really good, too.
I feel another blend coming there.
Well, that's why we did a Thai tea infused cream ale for him. He's doing another beer. They actually have a brewery license. But they're gonna contract all the beer. So they're either gonna do collabs with people, or I'm gonna basically private label batches for them, and then they're also going to carry our beer on tap. That will be happening at York as well. He has 4 taps over there, so in the next few weeks they're probably going to start tapping our beer.
Is he in downtown York?
No, he's over literally right off of 30 over here where all of the strip malls and all.
Okay. We're going to have to look into that. I'm not. My wife likes Asian food. I'm not much for the Asian food.
Give it a shot. It's not your stereotypical.
I had a bad experience, so it's just that head game of going back for Asian food. Yeah.
It's like burritos or bowls. It's not your typical takeout style, but for what it's worth, shameless plug. They're great people. So yeah, there'll be some interesting, recipes that probably come out of that. But he is putting a program together and bringing in an employee of his to run a small food program out of our location. Probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll get it off the ground.
Sounds like a partnership made.
Mm-hmm. Do you happen to have a Dollar General near you?
Oh, jeez.
I don't know. Probably.
Great idea for mac and cheese.
So Dave mentioned
sorry.
Again, your jokes are going completely over my head.
Most of them. That's the complaint about me. Most of the time, anytime I say anything, they look at me and says, "Do you know what he meant by that?" I mean, everybody's clueless.
Okay. No, Lydia and Stone. They're in. Oh man. The heck's the name of the town, but they're up here in Dover area on the other side of Dover, and right across the street's $8 York Haven.
Yeah,
and their son is got a culinary background, so was up there trying to do food for him instead of having food trucks there and stuff like that
at a Dollar General.
But he went across the Dollar General and bought like the macaroni and cheese and made mac and cheese. So that's kind of the joke. And everybody loved that mac and cheese. So that's why he mentioned that. But
interesting. Okay.
Sorry, it was just an inside joke that
But I think you're on the right thing. You got a good partnership there, and you'll be able to bring a food content because that's what most people want to come to a brewery. Just they want a little snack food or something to eat while they drink. So
right. Well, and my other partner founded a cold pressed juice company probably 7 or 8 years ago. So when we use fruit, I just added the equivalent of like 400 or 500 pounds of strawberries to this goza. That's probably our most popular sour. It's a strawberry basil lemon goza. It's not like a smoothie beer. It's still got that like medium bodied consistency of like the classic goza style, but with a lot of fresh pressed strawberry, lemon, and basil.
Wow!
And they have Ahold Giant as a client. They have all the PA New Jersey Whole Foods. So like their facility is like sweet for that kind of thing. So if I tell him I need something, for the most part, he could press it and have it in my beer within 24 hours.
Jeez.
Or within reason, I give him some notice and he's like, I'm going to come on this day. It's going to get pressed that day. It's going to get. So that's another partnership that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, you sound like you got it going on, but you got that marketing background of that. You know how to make this work. You're seeing it through a different glass. You're seeing it through a different glass.
Sometimes I wonder if I did better job for my former clients than myself. You always wrestle with like when you're working for clients, like they're your client, but like when you're your own client, you're like
you're on your worst
you're juggling so many other things. Yes, it's easy to like forget that component. So it's like it's tough to kind of discipline myself to take the time to actually do this for myself. Because I really enjoy it, and I still think that I will do some form of that forever, whether it's consulting.
You may be able to help the craft brewing industry, other brewers, that are looking at either established or looking to start. You can help them.
Mm-hmm.
Put that out there.
Yeah.
So speaking of glass, we have one sitting here with another one.
We do.
So what is this one here?
So the story behind this one is, this is called Old Chap. It's a recent English dark mild that I was playing with. So back in summer of 21, after we opened, I just decided that I really would love to drink an English mild right now. And at the time, other peers in the industry, and were kind of like, oh, we love English milds. Like brewers, you don't need to twist a brewer's arm to drink a nice English mild. But the challenge was they all pretty much said, good luck selling that style. You're going to be stuck with it.
Heard that.
Well, brewed that style, and it was our number one draft seller in 2022, and I've had to brew it so many times to keep it going. It's probably our most consistent flagship as far as customer demand.
Looks delicious.
So it's not this one though. Sorry.
No.
That one's called Public. And so because of the popularity of that style, I developed a second English mild recipe that's darker, a little roastier, a little bit lower ABV. And it's probably perfect temperature right now because it's been sitting. So it's almost cask temperature at this point.
Smells really good.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Old chap. English mild. Oh, you get that nice roastiness, mild flavor out of it, or the aroma. Oh, wow. And again, if you can see it, it is a clear beer, very clear. No haze in it. That's Adam. That's fucking delicious. I'm sorry, man. I'm like you. The ale style has really been very popular with me as far as my flavor profile goes, and ESBs, brown ales. This mild is good. Irish reds. This is very good.
Mm-hmm.
How much more is left in that can over there?
Well, I'm going to leave the black walnut version for you to enjoy at another time.
Oh wow,
that one's like really popular.
This is very good. So on my scale, that's at least a 4 or 5.
Anyways.
So you also mentioned you like to do whiskey. You got something you're over there. You're trying to do some whiskey stuff. You like bourbon?
I enjoy. It's kind of funny. I brew beer, but I really enjoy whiskeys. Largely, I used to be into Scotch back in the day briefly, and then was into bourbon for a little while, and then kind of, I don't know, just got tired of the chase or the drama around trying to try stuff. Took a break for a while. Obviously, was busy doing other things for the last few years. And then just met some great people, and I'm a part of a small kind of up and coming whiskey club. We the head distiller for Thistle Finch is the unofficial official president, and we meet down. With him and several other people. Typically once a week. Not everybody can make it. It's more of a everybody brings some stuff to share. We all chip in dues every month and vote on how to spend them. So if there's a bottle that we don't really want to spend the money on, but we want to try it, well, it's easier to do that in shared purchasing.
Sure.
And that way we can build up a little arsenal of different things to try, different flavor profiles. But getting back into scotches and different Irish whiskeys and a lot of different ryes and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun.
That's right up these two guys' alley.
Well, and craft distilling has been on the rise, and we all kind of saw the writing on the wall even 3 to 5 years ago that that's kind of the next thing that could become as big as craft beer. So I hope to at some point be able to get a distilling license as well. Maybe start playing around with some recipes there. I don't know as much about the distilling process. I mean, I've witnessed it and kind of watched and asked questions, but I'm not going to. That would be a situation where I don't think I would personally be doing the work.
Well, let me ask you a quick question, because you obviously have a lot more expertise in it than I do. The Scotch piece of it, I've always heard about the Johnny Walker Blue. Have you ever tried that? The Johnny Walker Blue?
Yes, years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is it what it's cracked up to be? I mean, everybody talks about it. That's the ultimate holy grail of the Scotch, but at over almost $200 a bottle, I'm not able to buy it. So,
Well, 200 isn't really a crazy number these days anymore. There's even bourbons and ryes that are sitting on the shelf for 189 or 249 or, back in the day, I would say that, yeah, I guess it may have been one that certainly lived up to the hype. Since then, there are far better things to acquire for far less money. There's a lot more variety, a lot more. And also there's a subjectivity to it as well. Like what types of flavors you gravitate towards may not be what that delivers.
right.
So to some, it might be their favorite, and others, not so much. It's kind of like Pappy Van Winkle's kind of like the holy grail of the bourbon world, and having tried all of them over the years, my favorite being the 15. Not the 20 or the 23. Probably because 15 is a higher proof, so you get more robust flavors, you get more of the whiskey and less of the dilution or the proofing. But for the price, there's never been a better time to have access to stuff that's truly solid, really good quality, and you don't have to spend a lot of money or chase it as much as other things. If you're going to go buy a bottle of bourbon off the shelf that is reasonably accessible, for me, it's either Russell's 10 or Knob Creek 12. Really great bourbons.
What, not Mad Dog 2020? Oh, Jesus.
I don't know. It's not a whiskey, but or maybe it is. I don't
It gives you a headache.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it beats the $8 a fifth.
Yeah.
The cool thing too is it's getting more difficult to source barrels as more breweries take barrels for barrel aging.
Yes.
There may or may not have been a rumor that one of the larger breweries or a brewery that is owned by a large organization may have purchased a bunch of barrels and then destroyed the ones that they didn't use just to make it harder for people like me to get them. Not sure. Not sure if that's 100% true, but if it is, that's pretty shitty.
Yeah, that's pretty. That's definitely
But
shitty.
so what appeals to me is with a distilling license, not only can we make our own product, whether it be rye or bourbon. To me, bourbon comes from Kentucky. I know Mason-Dixon makes a bourbon, which by style guidelines they're following the bourbon recipe profile of being at least 50% corn. But a lot of these distilleries that have been coming into the scene, they don't even distill bourbon. It's private labeled out of Indiana. It's MGP product. A lot of these boutique brands, they're a bottling company, they're a branding company. They develop a label, a brand, and a story. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that because you can pick virtually any type of mash bill and blend it a certain way or age it a certain period of time. And you can actually develop through your palate your own specific flavor profile of bourbon that's perfect, almost perfectly distilled at a facility that, and you don't have to necessarily invest in that type of real estate or equipment. What gets me excited is I like barrel aging beer. So what would be awesome is have my own particular bourbon or whiskey
and your own barrel
that I then take that barrel and fill it with beer. I get 2 uses out of the barrel. I have control over the flavor profiles. I know what I'm getting, and I don't have to necessarily source or get into the rat race of chasing barrels from other places.
So you're barrel aging right now.
Mhm.
Where do you source them from?
Thistle Finch.
Okay.
I have some from Stolen Wolf, and at some point I might have Mason-Dixon.
Okay.
The gentleman I've been working with there seems to be accommodating in that, when they dump certain barrels, they'll let me know if they have any available or keep me posted.
Yeah, Yanni was an awesome guest.
He was.
I know when we featured most of his canned cocktails during the recording, but we cheersed out with his 125 proof rum.
That one's delicious.
That
The aged rum.
Yep.
I want one of those barrels. I have a perfect beer that I would.
And then we did his bourbon.
How do you say it legally? I smuggled a lot of his Yanni stuff to Munich, Germany. We had a big show over there, and we were giving it to our guests. And you should have heard the reviews, asking, just like we started off, $200 bottles, $300 bottles. I'm like, doesn't matter. Do you like it? They loved it. I had gin and bourbon and everything
and he
else.
does everything at barrel proof.
Yeah.
That's not very common.
Well, when we did it, since I'm not a bourbon whiskey kind of guy, and Kevin's son Ben, who does the live episode, we asked him how to sample this because we're not drinkers of this. We don't travel that path. And he said, well, put it in your mouth, let it swig it, swallow it, let it breathe, and then take your second swig. And then when I did it, it still burnt like hell, but I was able to get the flavor profile out of it, what he was explaining is supposed to get out of it. I don't have that kind of palate to begin with, and not saying that I couldn't drink it. I'm not going to drink a lot of it, but it was very good. But I think it's you're on the right path, and that's why we left our name with Pour, because there's so much more to the craft industry as a whole rather than just beer. Right now, breweries is just the most popular, but there's distilleries that are popping up, wineries are all over the place, the cideries and meaderies, and I'd love to get some more of those options involved in some kind of recording, and we can get their story out as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you get into distilling, that'd be cool.
So what was, looking back after the 2 years, what are the things that you're most proud of? And does that actually fall into some of your future endeavors?
Yeah, I mean, if I could do what I wanted all day long, I would just be making big stouts and barley wines, barrel aged beers. I mean, there are by far our highest rated beers. Our barrel aged imperial stout took a first place at the farm show this past year, which was the first competition that we entered. Didn't get around to sending any out to like World Beer Cup or GABF yet, but that will certainly be in the works. So I think more just creating a community of people that I wouldn't have otherwise known, like the people that are our closest friends or customers. They aren't my friends and family. They're people I met because of opening Cartel and hearing truly unbiased feedback about all the beers and, the diversity of what we do and offering variety instead of just heavy in one particular style. It's been rewarding. It's a lot of work. It's really good to have something to show for it, even if it's just a community of great people that support us and
is it too early to put the future plans into place now?
Probably.
Or is it, yeah.
When going back to talking about how lucrative the taproom model was and the reason that I thought that we could make this work, and then obviously 2 weeks after we signed the lease in March of 2020, well, obviously the whole world changed. And
it changed a lot for everybody.
And it's changed to some regard. Some of those changes are near permanent. So what we went into, what we planned going in, looked a little bit different than what we're experiencing right now. So now we have to think about, okay, what's the pivot for us? How big or small is it?
Right.
What is it? Where do you go from here? So it's challenging. There are much easier and cheaper businesses to start. But I think, people say, where do you want to go with this? And I'm sure many people don't expect or plan to become like a Trogs or like this huge, that's just intimidating and overwhelming to think about. I want to find that sweet spot of where we can produce enough to leave out the distributors.
Right.
You know, not that I have anything, you know, personally against it. That's just not what I ever wanted it to be. It's more make enough that you sell it direct and find that sweet spot, because you're more profitable that way. You don't have to you don't have to run yourself ragged. You know, if I could make this much beer and make the same money as it would cost to make this much beer, or as it, you know,
it's a no-brainer.
But is that model still there? I think it could be. You know, growing up in New England, I always kind of bring it up because it was inspirational to me. My parents' house is not very far from Treehouse, and I used to go up there when nobody knew who they were. You know, they were just a shed in Brimfield, Massachusetts, with a brew system the same size as mine, and to this day they don't distribute.
Yeah, I hear a lot about Treehouse.
Thousands of cases of beer sold every week.
Yep, I haven't
out of
had
that facility.
Yet,
not that that's where I'm going to be.
You may be.
Maybe.
You may.
But that's an anomaly. Everybody kind of... There's a lot of great musicians out there, but not all of them become, you know...
Speaking of musicians, we noticed on your report here that you...
You're a fellow guitar player.
Yeah.
I see that.
I started playing when I was 12. I wish I could play. I wish I had more time to play more. I still get to play now and again.
Yeah. Tell me about it. I wish I had more time to play. Right now, like to be a good guitar player, you have to practice all the time. And when I was playing, that was one of the things it never left my hands. But at this point now, I can't, you know, and I enjoy it, but it's not like I used to. Did you play in a band, or did you just play for yourself?
A couple in my college age years.
There you go.
And then more recently, just backing up another local singer-songwriter with, you know, live band, electric, acoustic.
You need to get in touch with Mark from Big Dog, because he dabbles with his guitar too.
Oh, he's great. He plays around. He plays gigs. I think
start calling you guys the nomadic brewers.
And that would be what would be cool for the future is, and we are pursuing this to an extent, having conversations and kind of trying to make something work where there would be a heavier music component, whether it's just hosting smaller, more independent musicians from all over, not just local. You know, there's a gentleman that's become a friend of mine through opening the brewery and having similar tastes in beer, mostly these barrel-aged barley wines and stouts, who has a passion for that. And so, you know, at some point we might try to create a place for him to kind of do that, because that's what he's done for years and years and years. So
I tell you what, you have a lot of opportunities that can be working out.
Lancaster is very... People take it for granted. Even, I mean, just central Pennsylvania, just, you know, where I grew up, it's unheard of to have the kind of like culture and like economy, self-sustainability, resources, people of all kinds with all different skill sets that can, you know, it's always about the team. You know, I mentioned, you know, the couple of partners that I have. Well, they do things and they're good at things that I am not good at.
And I think that's every relationship. The complementary of the aspect of it, it makes the relationship better.
Right. And they enjoy doing things that I don't enjoy doing at all. So
do you have somebody to clean out the mash tun?
You know, my buddy Mike does it. I'm happy to do it. I've done it plenty of times, but every time he likes doing it. I don't know. Every time you don't even have to ask him. He starts It's not that bad. I mean, it's probably more tedious with a larger system.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, we got more beer here, and this is we got like 3 or 4 sitting in front of us.
Yeah, we should probably layer these in even as we're talking.
That's so. What is this one?
So this one's called Little Bump with Mosaic. So not gonna lie.
Hazy?
Well, it's naturally hazy. It's an American blonde ale, hopped almost like a session IPA. So it's heavier on the hop side. I mean, I guess some would call it
I could get the hop out of
petite
it.
IPA, but it's more of a American blonde ale style starting point with a heavier handed hop.
And what hop add
Mosaic. This one's Mosaic. We've done it with Citra. It's largely single hop. So
okay,
we've done it with Citra, El Dorado, Falconer's Flight, I believe.
I kind of like that because you're focusing on the aspect of just the hop, right? What that hop is bringing to it. A lot of brewers are doing a single hop style beer, so I like that aspect because now for us amateurs. we understand, okay, this hop is bringing these different flavors to the party. Now when you start taking that, and now you understand what hops are doing, and I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and no lie, it's not my idea. This was very heavily inspired by Treehouse's Eureka, one of my favorite beers that they do. It's light, it's lower ABV, it's still full flavored. You still get to really enjoy the hop profile, the single hop nature of it. And part of the blending concept that we had touched on earlier is in the future, I had always hoped to do beers like this where you have a single hop Mosaic and then you also brew the same beer and it's single hop Citra or Galaxy or Amarillo or whatever. And you have them both on tap. So now you can drink them individually. Or you can blend them 50-50, and now you've got half, you've got a 2-hop beer. You got the same base beer, so nothing's going to change with that flavor profile. But now you're like, I just filled my pint, half Citra, half Galaxy, or whatever,
that's cool.
Whatever options.
That's a good idea.
So now you have 2 beers, but you have 3 options.
Yeah. So what's this one called again?
Little Bump.
Little Bump. So cheers to the Little Bump. Getting a little bit of a grapefruit citrus out of it. Is that correct?
It's a little on the Mosaic is a little more on the danker side. Yeah, it's kind of almost musty, which is where your grape comment probably comes from. Like,
it's funny with the IPAs. It's hard for me with the smell, but it tastes better than what I smell. I don't know if that makes sense.
Mosaic is it's a very popular hop. Not always my favorite. It can vary from crop year to crop year. The hops that we get as a smaller brewery are kind of the leftovers that don't get hand selected or contract purchased by the larger breweries who literally will pick
the prime.
Hey, I want this acreage, and then whatever's left is kind of packaged and sold to the little guys.
Do you ever deal with some of the local hop farms?
I have not yet.
Okay.
No. I'm open to maybe doing an experiment with something. I know Ryan at Poor Man's has worked with a local hop grower with certain varieties. It's just it takes a specific region. There's a reason why the majority of like the hops that are used for these types of beers come from the Pacific Northwest. It's a climate thing. It's the soil or whatever components, chemistry,
and we can only grow certain types in this area because of what we have. So
yeah, but so some people get green onion from Mosaic hops. I do sometimes.
It's funny you say that.
And it's kind of like, how some people love cilantro and others think it tastes like soap. It's a palate thing. So it's it's nothing wrong with your palate. It's just some people perceive things. Their mind tells them different.
Everybody has a different flavor and palate taste.
Right.
I mean, overall, it's not my favorite style, but it's very good. And I like the way it act. You know, you're featuring just the one hop in that beer. I do like that aspect of it because, like I said, with us amateurs and people that don't understand, now you're going to understand, okay, if it says Mosaic, I'm going to get this flavor out of the beer. Whether it's mixed with something else, then that we know what hop's bringing that to the party.
I think my favorite one is probably Citra. I haven't done it with Galaxy yet, but Galaxy is kind of a coin flip sometimes too. Citra is probably one of the most consistent hops I've ever dealt with or tasted. Like
most of them are what the C's, the Citra, the Chinook, the Cascade,
Columbus, Centennial.
Yeah, Centennial. But no, it's not overall. It's not bad. So that's your blonde ale base, and then do you use that blonde ale for anything else, or just for this style?
Not yet.
Okay.
I've done it. I have done it one other time where I used a Belgian blonde or Belgian yeast instead of just American Chico yeast, which is what's in this. Which is funny because people talk about it's like the haze is a byproduct of just the process and like the dry hops staying in suspension. Maybe some of the yeast, but like you're using a Cali strain, which is used for crystal clear. It drops out. So again, the beer does what it wants. If the beer decides that it's going to be clear in 3 months, the flavor profile is not impacted. So it's more of a visual than anything else.
No, it's very good. Very good. So, Adam, do you like sports? Do you get time to watch sports? Have you played sports? What are some of your favorite sports that are out there?
I do. I was talking earlier with Dave. Just he was asking about if we're watching baseball or anything. Yeah, I'm a Boston fan, so it's Red Sox, Patriots. That's what I grew up with.
Yeah,
that's what I'm a product of my
Boston.
environment.
You don't know how to pronounce an R.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I've lost that. Unless I get mad. If you make me mad, that might start coming out. My old New England, Boston kind of.
I'm a Yankee fan. Have been all my life. So
I'm sorry.
Anytime. Me too. I don't care if the Yankees finish.
Are you a Cowboys fan too?
No. I don't watch football. I really don't watch football other than Penn State. But I don't care where the Yankees finish.
That's too bad.
As long as they finish ahead of Boston.
We went to a Boston's game last year. And head again this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say I was on Fenway. I took a tour of Fenway.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who you are or who you like
I'm
or
a
hate.
Boston-
it's an iconic field.
I'm
You
a
gotta
baseball
go.
purist, so I
Yeah.
love it.
You ever been to Wrigley?
No, but that's on my bucket list.
That's a cool. Yeah.
So I was in Chicago, but I didn't get a chance to go to Wrigley. But I want to do it. Funny thing about the Fenway is we're riding up the New England coast on our motorcycles, and I'd scheduled a tour, the scheduled walk around tour of Fenway.
Mm-hmm.
We had left the Sam Adams Brewery tour.
I was going to ask if you did the Sam Adams tour
with a little buzz, by the way.
Oh,
now we're on motorcycles trying to maneuver our way through the Boston streets, which isn't fun to begin with. And I called the guy I'm supposed to be having a tour with and said, "Look, we might not make it by 11 o'clock." He said, "That's all right. Just when you get parked, just call me. I'll come get you." Well, parking is atrocious around Fenway to begin with, especially with 6 motorcycles and a car.
Yeah.
Found a lot next to, right on the other way of Yaqui Way. There's a fenced in lot and a little burger joint there. We couldn't park in the burger joint, and the little guy running the fenced in lot was having an issue with us parking motorcycles. So I called my contact from Fenway. He comes over and he convinces the guy to let us park in there. We get a one-on-one tour of Fenway. And the guy's like, "Where do you want to go? Do you want to go down to the field?" Like, hell yeah, take me to the field. So I'm standing behind home plate. I just pick up a little dirt because I'm a baseball purist. And even though it's the Red Sox, it's Fenway. And I look up and there's the guided tour. They're up in the stands. I'm standing down on the freaking field. He's like, "You want to go to the clubhouse?" I'm like, "Yeah, but worried about our motorcycles down there with that guy that was having an issue with us." So
you didn't wear your Yankees stuff.
No, I did not.
Okay, good.
I did not. No.
I don't know if he'd be here.
No, I appreciate baseball. I love baseball. I like the new rules. I heard, you guys were talking about it. I think the new rules are going to get back to a more traditional style of baseball game. You're going to see more stealing and small ball being played the way it should be played. No. So
It's going to be a little more strategy or a little more chess match. So I don't know. Football has a lot of that because there's a lot of.
I don't know. I was flipping
There's
through
a lot
the
of
day.
diversity with how you can execute things, and
I was flipping through the day just when I got home from church before I decided to go outside and work, and they had the USFL on and the XFL, and I'm like, I can't watch this. It's just not my cup of tea. I'm baseball.
Yeah.
These guys are football. Steelers.
Yeah.
All right.
I like that.
All right.
That's okay.
So you're the New England Patriots.
Yep.
What's the hoodie going to do?
I don't know.
He hasn't been the same since
I
the goat
I
left.
think the question was clearly answered. I mean,
I
he's a
think it
brilliant
was.
coach. I mean, he's definitely
Right.
his mind when partnered with the right people.
Do you imagine
seen
if
what
he'd
you
have
can
stayed in
do.
Cleveland? We'd be talking about the Browns instead of the Patriots.
Maybe.
So,
Sometimes the organization
yeah.
Right.
dictates,
Exactly. There's a lot of times that a player will play for one team. He'll play years for that team. He'll be the greatest thing that's since sliced bread for that city, and then he'll get traded or he will move on to another team, and he goes into obscurity because he can't do what he did in his new team. So you never know.
and that's why I don't really. People are like, "Oh, you're paying attention to the draft," and I'm like, I used to, and it doesn't matter because anytime that they've drafted or traded someone who's like, this guy's going to be dynamite, they don't really typically work out, and it's always the people the no names that become
Well,
like
Brady
they've
was
turned more no name players
Yeah.
into superstars who then go somewhere else and make a huge paycheck, and then and they don't seem to do well when they take a top shelf name brand player.
Aaron Rodgers.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, the story of Brady is kind of funny because it's like we were watching. I mean, I remember watching Patriots games with my dad. It's like they suck, awful, And then the Bledsoe thing, and, oh, he's hurt. Oh, who's this guy? Oh,
Yeah, 20 years later.
but
So.
and you can tell when you watch some of these other quarterbacks that have come out of New England. They almost sometimes they have little they almost look like Brady sometimes with how they stand or their stance or how they move or whatever. So there are things that are gleaned in the process. I remember when Garoppolo left, I was just like, why'd they let him go? They invested so many years in this guy. He pretty much trained under Brady.
Because they didn't think Brady was
I think
leaving.
when you leave a team after 20 years and then you get a Super Bowl your first year at a completely new team, I think that pretty much solidifies the argument of who it was. Who
Yes.
was it, Brady or Belichick? Not again, both brilliant
together.
in different ways.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, we have another beer sitting here since we loaded up our rack again.
sure, yeah. So this is.
So
I'm glad I brought this. 'cause
this
you were
is
talking about-
one of your cream ales.
This is the only cream ale we make. It's so when I was talking earlier about how I made Amish Mug Club, I started making the base, and so that's just called Mug Club. And so when we make the cream ale, we have it on tap, plain, and I like drinking it that way.
Again, if you
This
can look,
is-
crystal clear. Again, it is crystal clear. So this is the Mug Club, and it's with root beer and vanilla.
Mhm.
Oh my God, it smells so damn delicious.
Pretty good.
So now I notice you're swirling over there. Are you looking for certain things?
I don't know. I just like I like to have a little more head on my head retention.
So you like head?
Sure. There you go.
All right.
Well, and also it's kind of a subconscious thing. I don't even know I'm doing it.
Don't you?
I've just doing different tastings, judging.
It-
like
certain
sometimes you
things
want. Sometimes when you're judging a beer, you swirl it to let
Let the legs.
some of the carbonation and the aroma get out, and you cover it up to kind of preserve it, and then
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
You get a much more larger idea of what's going on aromatically with the beer. So through years of doing that, I don't even know I'm doing it.
So
you know, it's funny. I've actually found myself swirling and smelling water. Don't even know I'm doing it. Completely.
It's just out of habit.
It's just a habit. Funny. It's subconscious, so it's kind of funny.
So the Amish Mug Club or just the Mug Club?
This is Amish Mug Club. So the Amish Mug Club is the Cheers.
Cheers. So the Amish Mug Club.
It's the cream ale blended in the keg with root beer and vanilla bean.
Oh wow!
Both are good smelling. Taste.
I get that root beer. I'm trying to see if I get the vanilla out of it.
I get the vanilla.
That's what gives it the kind of the creamy.
There it is at the
ice
very
cream.
Back end.
It's warm enough now. These are all kind of almost room temperature. So you that's when you can really pick out the vanilla. When it's cold, it's not as that in your face.
That is something different. I wouldn't have ever thought about putting a root beer with a regular beer. That's delicious. I wonder if we can brew that in our contraption.
Absolutely.
We can call it the beer.
Doesn't taste much.
I'll swap your recipes. Give you an English IPA recipe.
There you go.
Oh boy.
Yeah, just brew a cream ale and throw, if you're doing 5 gallons, just.
I don't think out of the Brewzilla I'm going to get something this crystal clear without using like Werflock or Irish moss or some gelatin in the fermentary.
If you close your eyes and you drink this beer side by side and one of them's clear and the other one isn't, but they both taste the same, do you really care?
No, I don't. I'm not up for judging. I'm just up for drinking.
There you go.
That's all I care about is drinking. Like I said, when we did that Irish Red, it's like everybody was tapping. I'm like, holy shit, I got to come up with another recipe. We got to brew another beer because that Irish Red corny's going to go pretty quick. And it is. It's almost empty.
Pretty good.
That is very good. Now, is that always on tap or is that like a rotational one?
No, typically when I brew, if I brew a full batch of Mug Club, then that's when I might run off 1 or 2 kegs of this, and then that's it.
Okay, so it's a special.
I make it again. Same with the one. English milds. Like if I make Public, I'll make London Fog, probably 2 kegs, maybe a third, and then the rest goes to straight, just straight up English mild.
And how many taps that you keep in your room again?
About 14.
So you have 14 tap system. Mm-hmm. That's pretty.
I could have 16.
That's pretty good selection.
I have 16. Yeah. I have 16 like shanks. One of them's for CO2 purging. The other one's not installed.
You getting in any of the side pool taps or anything like that?
I bought one a long time ago.
Because that's become a very popular thing, especially with that Czech Pilsner.
Yeah. I have one. I haven't used it in a while.
Okay.
But I think I also need to get an adapter for it because it's European and it doesn't seat well with my shanks. So I have to either heavily ratchet it down with a gasket so it won't leak. But I haven't noticed. I've noticed, different flavor differences with how you serve a Pilsner or like a lager with it. I'll probably bring it back at some point. I'm more excited about that. I just got a cask engine finally, so I'll be installing that soon so we can hand pump English milds and English IPAs or ESBs.
You're good. You're definitely going old traditional style.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're getting popular again. A couple other breweries locally just bought one.
Okay.
So that's exciting.
Do you keep up with some of the trends? Is that how you with your marketing background? Do you keep up with trends and stuff like that? Of like, okay,
I try. I haven't
I want to do.
I think, yeah. I try. I don't really know if there's a heavy trend shifting in all hand pulled cask engine style beers. I know they're popular with a select group of people, and as with more education. people who don't know they exist, and then they try it, and then they like it, then they tell their friend. Their friend tries it. It's word of mouth. This whole industry is people telling people.
I think there's one style or one new trend. I'm not gonna say it's a trend, but something I saw where they got the hot iron. I
don't know much about that.
That you order a beer and the iron's sitting there, and then you're sticking it in your beer, and it gives it a whole different flavor.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see how that. We'll see if that takes off as a trend. I don't know.
You don't want to be at the front of that.
It's like a liability issue. I don't want to train. Oh yeah, take this hot iron thing and don't hurt yourself and it's fine. It's a thing.
Yeah,
it's great. I'm sure it tastes awesome, and I look forward to trying it. But I'm gonna
focus on what makes you.
I just can't wait to put like a 12% English barley wine on cask and hand pull that.
Oh, there
at 50 degrees.
Let me know.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to be over there for that. So anything else you like to do on the side when you have time?
When I have time, I used to go golfing. I haven't in a couple of years. I really enjoy playing poker competitively.
Oh, okay.
Locally for now, or we're
gonna see you in the World Series of poker.
I would like to at some point. I don't know. Maybe someday I'll end up there.
Don't take this the wrong way, but you have a good poker face. I could see it.
Okay,
you could fly to Vegas after you get your license.
There you go.
You fly your little Cessna.
There you go.
Yeah. Here to Vegas in a Cessna.
So now I've got
a couple stops along the way.
I've got to put poker chips on my logo now, I guess.
Well, you can take that airplane and have them dropping the dollar bills out the back end like you just hit the jackpot.
There you go. Yeah.
That's cool.
So, is there a local poker scene that you play, or
no? I've been in a league for probably 10 years now. Great group of people. Once a month, point system. 55 members. Usually 40 to 50 people play.
Wow. Like Texas Hold'em, or is it something like straight card? Or
Yep, Texas Hold'em.
Okay.
Then there's another small local league that I'm in, and then there's no shortage of games that I could get into, like just local games.
What's the biggest pot, if you want to share, that you ever won at a table?
At a local game?
Anywhere.
6,200.
That's pretty good. That's a pretty good pot.
That's a big pot.
I'd take $6,200.
It's a grind.
I know.
It's one thing if you're playing with 40 other people for an evening. It's another thing when you go to an event and it could be like 2 or 3 days long.
Ooh.
And you got to go from one table to the next because you got to beat the people at your table to move on, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, they're constantly consolidating. This was years and years ago. It was Atlantic City. The biggest private game was like 1,800, I think.
Oh, wow.
That's a private game?
Well,
that ain't nickel dime.
No,
it was like $100 tournament.
Yeah.
Well, that's a bit. Well, maybe not quite that much.
Ooh.
Ben does quite a bit there.
Yeah, I think it's cool, man. I mean, I didn't even know that was around other than if you go to the casino or something and sit on some of their tables. But I didn't even know that they had leagues. That's pretty cool.
I mean, it's private. It's not.
No, yeah, I understand.
I don't know if I should even be talking about it.
If I have to edit this, I will.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, I think
there's no illegalities or rakes or anything like that. I don't think I know nothing's being broken.
I think, I like playing nickel dime poker around with my friends and stuff. I never thought about doing it professionally or whatever. But,
yeah.
So that would be another goal, to sit at the World Series of Poker?
I would love to have the experience. It's not something that I work into my
budget
active pursuits or anything right now, but that would be fun to do someday.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Whether I win a seat or have to fork over the buy-in, which is no small thing.
Substantial amount of money.
Yeah.
I can imagine that.
Yeah.
So we already touched on your favorite styles. Like, you like the heavy barrel aged stuff, which is right up our alley. That's kind of where we started.
I guess I should have just brought 4 of those.
No.
Because I
By
have
all
no
means.
shortage of those.
Everything that we've had
Old
here
ones.
so far has been
Damn good.
absolutely good.
Very good.
Yeah, this one's going to be the interesting one, though. This is so this one's I brewed it. Oh man,
Let's
sometime
cheers this one in after. Take a break and cheers this one in. This looks good.
We're gonna
This
finish
looks
this
really
out.
Oh yeah. It's a imperial milk stout with unfermented Vermont maple syrup, coffee, and cocoa nibs.
Oh, wow.
And I feel like over time, this is what we talk about with certain beers, and like, do they age well? Do they not age well? So for me, I'm going to be fussing over this whole thing, but people go nuts for this even to this day, and I'm like trying to find all the imperfections so that I can fix it. So it's
It's your beer.
it's
You
interesting.
want to find that, but I'm telling you right now, I'm getting the cocoa out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to try it. So, what are you calling this one?
It's called Breakfast in the Dark.
Breakfast in the dark. Cheers.
Cheers.
Breakfast in the dark.
Wow.
Oh my. Oh, that sweetness of that maple just finishes that off with that coffee notes, the chocolate roastiness of it.
There's another flavor there that I'm not getting, but it's very good. Maybe it's just my palate that I don't know what it is.
Oh, damn.
Describe it.
Cinnamon.
No. Well, maybe for you.
Yeah. It's,
It's like the coconut, but then it's something else. I think it's really good.
Chocolate.
I'm getting a little bit of cinnamon in it.
Yeah,
My
no
flavor.
cinnamon. So, and that's the thing about coffee beers is trying to figure out the
Very
best
good.
way to shelf stabilize it so that it ages. Because coffee can kind of fade and do things to the beer that I don't particularly care for, but that doesn't, most people don't know. Or
Now, when you're putting coffee in this, are you sticking the beans or you grind it and
I
then
use freeze dried coffee.
so you're using like they're already ground
It's like a
and
peppermint.
it's freeze dried.
It's
It's-
pre brewed coffee that's then all the moisture sucked out of it, and the beer actually rehydrates it.
Oh wow! I don't
Most
care.
breweries, I don't think, do that.
I don't care what
if
you
any.
say. It's fucking delicious. I don't care what flavors you're trying to taste, Kevin. It's fucking delicious. I'm sorry.
I know I'm totally wrong, but I'm getting a peppermint, and I know that's
Probably the coffee.
is that the coffee?
Well,
Yeah.
peppermint. So sometimes to some, when coffee is not super fresh, it's fresh at the time of kegging and bottling.
Sure.
But as coffee ages, depending on the variety, I've had this happen sometimes, and then it doesn't happen other times. So trying to figure out the rhyme or reason, but it can throw green pepper.
Whatever it is, I
So
truly
when you
enjoy
say
it.
peppermint, I immediately think, oh, pepper.
No, it's like the sweeter. To me, I think it's very good.
Just fucking drink it.
No, you know
I have
what?
been.
So maple syrup can throw a slight wintergreen.
There you go.
notes
Yes, exactly correct.
when it ages as well.
It's
so
very good.
So we stabilize the beer so that the yeast is not alive, and then I add the maple syrup. So that you preserve that sweetness. So it is a sweeter beer. I wouldn't say it's full pastry stout or whatever, but it's, because it takes a lot to get that maple flavor. So I'm trying to figure out that.
Now, did that come
that
from New
balance.
England?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just checking.
I actually would love to partner with a Pennsylvania maple syrup producer to try to maybe do some stuff local or statewide at least, and not have to source it from Vermont or Connecticut or New Hampshire.
But that's your area. That's your home area.
It is, and I do have particular there's a difference.
That's
There's definitely
damn
a
good.
difference.
I don't
but-
mean to interrupt, but I think
No,
this is
no.
damn good.
I said it's good. That's why I said just frickin' drink it.
I have been.
It's awesome. So we had talked a little bit about maybe what your goals were and is where you're seeing yourself in 5 years. bigger footprint, or is that kind of where you're?
Yeah, I would hope that. Yeah, in 5
putting
years.
that plane out there as a visual dream.
Mm-hmm.
Is a tap room looking? Are you that dream there going to be to an expansion as that as well?
Yeah, no, I think it'd be nice to be either at or in the process of a larger facility within 5 years. I think short-term goals being just out of my head and not what the market dictates. Like I said, I don't expect to be like this Trogs. I love Trogs, by the way. I think they do a phenomenal job.
I'd like to get them on the program.
Good luck.
I gave you a contact.
I know.
I know a couple of folks there, yeah. But it'd be cool to have like a center location, right? And there are a couple of opportunities that are kind of there for us if we can make it work. But have our main location be right by the airport. Mm-hmm. Like airplane hangar style.
That would get right in what you're playing,
and then have a couple of satellite tap rooms, whether it's Lancaster City,
York,
or we can have 3 locations under our license.
Oh, okay. So each license is different.
A brewery license allows you to have a total of 3 locations, and that's regardless of. Like whether you use them or not, you're paying the same licensing fee.
Those fees were like Tattered Flag had expanded pretty quick. I mean, they opened a tap room.
They probably had 3 locations under their brewery license, and then another 3 locations they could use under their distillery license. So they had 6.
Yeah, and I think not against them. I like Tattered Flag, but I think they expanded way too quick because the tap room in Gettysburg didn't fare too well, and they closed that down.
Lancaster's closed.
Oh, they closed that one too.
And Hershey closed.
Wow.
I just think sometimes they overstep. They don't think about what can happen. They're not thinking about the business process.
Yeah, I don't really know much about their operation.
I don't either. I'm just saying and that happens in every aspect of business. You're seeing a little growth, revenue growth. What if we would expand it and make it double or triple it? Sometimes you go too quick.
You'd said something interesting earlier about getting your kegs out to other locations. To me, it's probably not the biggest money maker, but to get your name out there.
Yeah, I consider it marketing and advertising.
Exactly.
Could I sell that keg for a lot more in-house? Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I could also make enough to satisfy my in-house demand and
expand your operations.
And it's not. I'm not going to turn down like taking a check in exchange for a keg in real time.
Right.
It's not hard to just
wash your hands of it.
Just enjoy it, Right. I'd be willing to. It's more strategic for me. We get a lot of inquiries about kegs, and I don't say yes all the time. Most of the time.
Well, when I build my Keezer out here, maybe I'll have to inquire about one of
because I think we do have customers, and that's another thing too. Is like we have customers that like want a sixtel on the regular.
Right.
Oh wow, your customers.
I have several regulars that want sixtels.
That's awesome.
That's fine. You tell me you're going to want it. I will fill sixtels and not just halves. And some bar accounts can only do sixtels because their space is limited, or they're using under counter kegerator setups. But yeah, it's a marketing thing. Like I should reach back out. We had 3 taps at a time going at Pizza Boy for a while. It's a little bit of a haul.
What do they have? They have 80 or 90 taps on system.
Over 100, I think.
Or over 100. I know we've been up there
around
a couple
100.
times.
Yeah, I was going to say we've been there for a while, but
that was cool because you'd have people that came to Lancaster because they tried something there, and they're like, "Well, I want to try the rest of their stuff."
See, I would think just the opposite because there's so many choices to try. Hit and miss there.
That's how I treat festivals too.
Yeah.
I can't say yes to every beer festival.
You can't. You'd be busy every week.
Well, I'd rather just do strategically, like Kennet Brewfest, shameless plug, great festival. I'm not affiliated with them.
I'm writing it down.
They just, I think this was their 26th or 27th year. And it's nonprofit.
It's Kennet Square?
Kennet Square. Yep. Nonprofit. They always have a great lineup of breweries that participate. They'll put it out there and literally it's like the first X amount to respond are in and the rest of you are out of luck. Like,
oh wow. So it's an on-demand thing.
And it's very well run. They raise money for their nonprofit. They're happy with the results they get there. At least it seems to be that. They pay a fair amount for your kegs. They take care of the vendors.
Oh, so they're paying you for your kegs.
Yeah, I mean it's wholesale.
Okay. But so it's not like some of these brew fests around here. You're just going to we still
have to show up, set up, pour, staff it, and that's a donation essentially.
Right. Okay.
Or a volunteer type of thing. Like I'm fortunate to have like friends who are just like, hey, I'm happy to help you. And I'll usually get 3 or 4 people to help.
You don't see they're back there tapping their own beer while
No. You get a few people to come help you, and then you just say, look, take shifts. All right, here you have the first hour, and then you can go check out the breweries.
There you go.
Whatever. And then the next person will take the next hour. And
so are you at any other than Buchanan Square this year?
Lidditz, I do. That's a great nonprofit. It's a great festival if you've never been. Probably one of the better ones in the state, in my opinion. And I've been going there since 2014. They've raised, I think, close to $600,000 in that much time for a local organization that helps people with mobility issues get, like wheelchairs and.
Also, so the donation
nonprofit.
It's nonprofit. They're raising,
but they still pay for your kegs, and they still make that kind of money.
I didn't know that's how Brewfest works.
Well, some of them don't. Some of them don't give you. They don't want to give you anything, and
you bring your beer
very little, or like, it varies from organization to organization. And again, if it's a nonprofit, regardless of what they pay, I will pay attention to it because I think it's great. The for-profit ones. I get a little more picky about.
Well, you're looking to make that staple as a business owner, that hey, we care more about our community than our revenue, and this is where you as a business owner are looking at it. All right, I'm going to participate in this because you're working for a nonprofit that's going to help less ability or something like. It's going to a good cause, one way or the other.
Right. If I'm going to contribute, or I don't want to say take a loss because I don't know.
It's a donation.
Yeah, we do. It's a donation to an extent with a subsidized payment of some sort. But like Kennet, they're about an hour from our tap room. It's just in that spot where people aren't necessarily coming to Lancaster very often. But we've had so many people regularly come to Lancaster because of meeting us at Kennet Brewfest, and they end up going to several other breweries while they're in Lancaster. So I like to think that like our participation in that festival has not only benefited us, but it's benefited several other breweries, or many other breweries in Lancaster, who weren't even there, but because people are coming out to visit us.
Checking
they're
out
like,
the local scene.
We're in Lancaster. Yep. Let's hit some others. And we're always sending people down the street, or
kind of like I explained.
Oh, have you ever been to Mad Chef? Oh, you got to go check that out. Oh, our town brewery's right down the street from us. Like you can hit our brewery at the top of Prince Street and hit like 5 total breweries without leaving that street. Essentially,
yeah,
you could.
Kind of like I explained to you my trip to Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get to the couple of breweries that were on my checklist, but because I went to one, they said, "Hey, you got to go try this one." Yep. Tell them I sent you. And I think that's part of this community thing that we had all mentioned before, and you had touched on it too. Is the community involvement and just the general community of the craft industry that is benefiting and making, bringing more of a one or two individualized areas. Mm-hmm. It's really boosting that and maybe it'll work with the distilleries and bring them to the forefront, just like the craft brew houses have done. And the wineries have already been there; they've been established. But like the cideries and stuff,
beer is still kind of unique in the camaraderie of the industry. It's friendly competition. I mean, everybody's. Yeah, I guess we're all technically competing, but everybody's friends. Like I'm on the board for the Lancaster Brewers Guild, and that's been incredible. Like just being everybody getting together, everybody keeping in touch, everybody helping each other out.
Networking.
It's kind of like you can literally it's kind of like that neighborly, like I need a cup of sugar type of thing.
Yep.
It's like, oh man, I'm short one sack of Pilsner malt for this beer I want to brew. I throw it out in the group, and there's usually a handful that are like, oh, I got you covered if you need it. Just let me know when you want to pick it up, or I can drop it off, or like whatever.
Yeah, it's
like where
awesome.
else are you going to get that? Like even in the distilling space, I don't think is quite that friendly.
Not yet.
Hopefully it becomes that. I mean, you don't see a local pizza shop guild.
No.
They're all like tooth and nail, like
Right.
just kind of fighting over pizza sales, and like you're just trying. It's like, come on, guys, there's strength in numbers and rising tides. I don't know. It doesn't work for everybody, but it works for us.
In my field, I've mentioned it before, the automotive field, we have a core of professional shops in this area that we work together, just like you're saying. And that's
great to hear.
That's how you build an industry, not your business, an industry. That's how you build it. You build it as a group of collective working on the same goal, period. That's how you build it. And that's how you bring it to the front. Adam, I don't know. I've had a great time sitting here and having a chat with you.
This has been fun. Thanks for having me.
We've had some fantastic beer.
Absolutely.
Tell us again where they can find Cartel Brewing. Where's your physical location online? And you have some other relationships that you say you're spreading on this side of the river that you had mentioned earlier in this recording with your friend with the Asian restaurant.
Oh yeah.
So
Sure.
we want to retouch on some of that stuff.
Sure. So our technical address is 928 North Prince Street, which is just over the bridge by the train station in Lancaster City, north side of Lancaster City. So we're on the corner of Prince and Jackson Street. Tiny little beer cafe. Like I said before, 14 taps. I try to keep the website up to date as far as what's on tap, but sometimes things move quick and I don't quite log in and swap them out. So to stay on top of everything, follow at Cartel Brewing on Instagram primarily, or Facebook as Cartel Brewing as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, keep in touch with these guys.
And then my partner Sam owns a business called Cilantro Asian Street Kitchen. It's kind of Asian fusion Chipotle style fast casual burritos and bowls, so they call them bings instead of burritos. Scallion pancake burrito style, build your own meal. And they have locations in downtown Lancaster, just outside of Lancaster, off of Fruitville Pike and Roseville Road, and also in York. I don't know the address off the top of my head. They just
we'll
opened
put a
it.
link in it.
They have a license as a brewery. They're calling it Cockpit Brewing. He kind of took a riff off of the Plain idea, which I'm not sure how I feel about yet, but we'll see. But they will be featuring a small number of taps. We'll be developing some specific recipes for their concept, as well as they'll be featuring actual Cartel beers on draft, as well as all the other benefits of Pennsylvania product, whether they look to get some Mason-Dixon canned cocktails or some of these other products that are out there that people really enjoy. So keep an eye out for that in the coming weeks and months.
All right. So,
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Dave, any last comments?
No, I've enjoyed myself, enjoyed the beer, yeah,
Thank you.
enjoyed the conversation. And
You were kind of quiet tonight.
sometimes I am.
Yeah.
Sometimes I am. Sometimes I say what I have to say, and I don't
And move on.
I don't elaborate with a lot of bullshit.
Mr. Kevin, any last comments?
No, thank you for joining us. Definitely everything was above par. Even I'm not an IPA guy, so it's tough for me for that one. But still the high threes for me for an IPA is great.
There you go.
So I got one last comment.
I think it's good.
Wrote down on your thing here about manual transmissions. Do you like working on them, or do you just like driving?
I'm a
stick
driving
shift?
enthusiast, and I'm a purist when it comes to stick shift and enjoying.
Not a lot of people know how to drive a stick shift anymore.
I know. Yeah, I've driven some nice vehicles that are paddle shifting, and it's exhilarating, but it's not as good in my opinion.
I don't know if I could get used to that paddle on the steering wheel.
It's hard.
I drove a McLaren. It's a phenomenal machine.
Oh, but that's high end shit, man.
And but I don't know, man. Sometimes you just want to have control. You just want to stick shift down there.
I was just watching the end of Ford versus Ferrari, and watching him play Ken Miles on that GT, man, just freaking shifting and going like that. I'm like, oh man, that'd be awesome. 200 and some mile an hour. I can't even imagine doing that kind of speed.
Yeah, I kind of.
You've exceeded that?
No, I really want to pick up an older BMW again. I used to have one, and I sold it, and I kick myself all the time because now they're super hard to come by, or they're not necessarily hard to come by. They're super hard to come by that are affordable for just a fun car, like the old E30s or.
Bring money with you.
Yeah.
Or broke man walking.
You'd be surprised how many mechanics there are just in my network in Lancaster that that's what they work on is those or Volkswagen.
You have to have I'm in the automotive field. I am not a European guy because we'll service most, make some miles, but when it comes to the European stuff, phenomenal driving machines. Expensive as hell to fix, and the information's just not readily available. So if you find people that can work on that strategically works on the European stuff, stick with them because they're very few and far between. They're worth their weight in gold. So we have one more beer here, Adam. What do we have?
So this is an English barley wine called Villain. That was brewed probably coming up on 2 years
So it's
ago.
aged well.
It was aged for, I think, 15 months, maybe 18. I think it was 15, though, in a rye whiskey barrel.
Oh, I'm getting the rye out of that right off the top of the nose.
Smells very good.
This was probably a 6 or 7 hour boil, clocking in around 14% ABV.
Oh, yeah, right up our alley. So if you're out there, whatever you have in your glass, it's a damn shame it's not this because right now I can't wait to try it, but it smells so good. Let's raise one with Adam and Cartel Brewing and Blending from Lancaster and the CPP, and let's all be bonded by beer.
Cheers.
Cheers.